Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that your bank account is frozen overnight. Now imagine this fact not because your bank failed, but because two of the world's closest allies suddenly turned their financial systems into weapons. Today, the United States and Canada, partners for generations, may have just triggered the most dangerous financial confrontation between allies since World War II. Because after the White House moved to freeze Canadian banks, Canada responded with a threat that shook global markets, dumping more than $100 billion in U.S. government debt, and within minutes. The US dollar plunged, bond markets panicked, and central banks around the world started making emergency calls. So what exactly happened today, and why are financial experts warning this could reshape the global economic order? Let's break it down. At 3:12, Trump had signed an executive order and tiny brave inside the United States. The order instructed the US Treasury Department to freeze correspondent banking relationships between American financial institutions and Canada's six largest banks: Royal Bank of Canada, Toronto Dominion Bank, Bank of Nova Scotia, Bank of Montreal, Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, National Bank of Canada. Together, these institutions manage nearly $5 trillion in assets and have deep operations inside the United States. TD Bank alone runs more than 1,100 branches across the U.S. East Coast. But under this executive order, starting at midnight, these banks would lose access to the U.S. dollar clearing system, which means they cannot process dollar transactions. They cannot settle trades in U.S. markets. They cannot send or receive international payments through American banks. In practical terms, this could freeze the daily operations of Canadian banks inside the United States. For many customers, that means bank accounts suddenly becoming inaccessible. The White House justified the move as a national security measure. According to the administration, Canada had refused to guarantee certain energy exports to the United States. Officials described Canada's decision as weaponizing policy. The calculation in Washington seems simple. Canada's economy has hundreds of billions of dollars in transactions every month through American financial networks. Cut them off, and the pressure would be immediate. According to sources, was that Canada backed down quickly. But Washington may have underestimated one key factor: Mark Carney. Mark Carney is not a typical political leader. Before entering politics, he spent years managing some of the most powerful financial institutions in the world. The US dollar dropped sharply, hitting its lowest level in years. Bond markets reacted instantly. And that is exactly what markets feared. Within 20 minutes of Carney's statement, foreign investors buying US debt keep borrowing costs low. If large holders start selling, interest rates can spike rapidly. To understand why this matters, you need to know how the US financial system works. America borrows trillions of dollars every year. The proceeds, he said, could be redirected into European bonds, Japanese government debt, gold reserves. These bonds help finance the US government. Carney announced that Canada would begin reviewing these holdings and preparing for a gradual sale over the next 90 days. Canada holds a significant amount of US Treasury bonds, in fact, roughly $319 billion worth, even without American financial networks. But Carney's second announcement was the one that truly shocked markets. Canada could continue international trade using euros, yen, pounds, and yuan. These swap lines allow Canadian banks to access foreign currencies directly, bypassing the US dollar system. The European Central Bank, the Bank of Japan, the Bank of England, and the People's Bank of China have all held rates steady. And then he revealed Canada's counter-strategy. First, Canada would activate emergency currency swap lines with major global central banks. Mark Carney stepped to the podium in Ottawa. Canada would not accept financial coercion. Less than 2 hours after the White House announcement, Mark Carney stepped to the podium in Ottawa. In other words, when it comes to financial warfare, Carney understands the battlefield better than almost anyone alive. Carney helped guide the country through that storm. Later, he managed Britain's financial system through the turbulence of Brexit. Carney helped guide the country through that storm. Later, he managed Britain's financial system through the turbulence of Brexit. During the 2008 global financial crisis, Canada was the only G7 nation whose banking system required a bailout. He served as governor of the Bank of Canada and governor of the Bank of England.